Welcome to my fox sculpture tutorial. In this tutorial, I will show you how I made this air dry clay fox sculpture. Let's begin. Hi! Here's a sketch I made ahead of time before I started sculpting. This bottle and foam ball will be the structure for the body and head of the fox. Right now, I'm hot gluing the ball to the bottle and trying to get rid of those pesky strings of hot glue. Now I'm using foil to help form the shape of the fox's head. I use a wooden clay tool to apply more pressure to form the shape of the foil. Working with aluminum foil can do a number on the skin of your fingers, so I try to use tools to help save my fingers. It can cause tiny little cuts all over your fingers and it can get very painful. So anything you can use to help save your fingers is a great option. It's time to attach the foil snout and the foil ears. Is it looking foxy yet? It's time to add the front legs to the fox. I use 18 gauge steel wire, a wire cutter, and a jeweler's pliers to help create the legs. After I have matching leg shapes done in the wire, I will cover the wire legs with foil to give the legs more shape and volume. With a Sharpie, I mark where I want to drill small holes into the bottle to insert the wire for the legs. I drilled the holes into the bottle with a Dremel tool, so the front legs can now be securely attached to the body of the fox. I bend the wire to a 90-degree angle on each leg and insert that into the drilled holes on the bottle. Then I add a piece of duct tape to help prevent the wire legs from shifting around. I cut and shape small pieces of wire to create the feet for the hind legs. Then I work on shaping and compressing the foil to form the legs. Next, I will insert the wire feet into the foil for the hind legs, add some hot glue to keep the feet in place, and set aside to let them cool. I add some foil for the fox's chest. Then I grab the hind legs that were set aside and cover the wire feet on the legs with foil. See? Once the feet for both legs are covered with the foil, I hot glue them to the fox's body. After the foil pieces are glued to the body, I like to fill in any large gaps between the foil and the bottle. This keeps all the pieces firmly in place, as well as it eliminates the need to fill those gaps in with clay. Last but not least is the most iconic part of a fox, the tail. I begin to shape a piece of foil into a foxtail. Once the basic form is shaped, I pierce a hole into the end of the tail, so I can insert a wire into the tail and use that to attach to the fox body. I'll add just a bit of hot glue to secure the tail, and ta-da! The fox form is ready to cover with clay. Let's get going. First, I add clay to the areas on the fox where I applied hot glue. This will help create a smoother transition between the foil body parts and the bottle. As I work, I use a little bit of water on my fingertips to help smooth the surface of the clay. Once I fill in those areas where the hot glue was, I begin to apply clay over the foil. Also, I like to add clay around the ears and snout to give them a snug fit onto the foam head. I allow this first application of clay to dry overnight. After the clay has dried, I begin to add clay to the remaining exposed foil and exposed areas of the bottle. When there are only wet areas of clay to hold on to while sculpting, I will let the clay dry so I don't smush the wet clay. After the clay has dried, I will continue sculpting until the entire fox form is covered in clay. It's time to give this fox more character. As you can see, I added some tufts of fur sticking out on the right side of the fox's head. I added some fresh clay to the left side of his head so you can see how I created the tufts of fur using clay tools and my fingers. His character is beginning to grow. Sculpting the second layer of clay is where I can give the fox his own unique personality. I will carve details onto his face, as well as stamped designs scattered on his fur. I'm adding fresh clay to his face so I can begin drawing details such as eyes, whiskers, and fur. Here I'm drawing the eyes. Oh, I rubbed that out. I want to make it a little different. Doing the second eye. Adding some fur marks and some whiskers. Here are a few of the silicone stamps that I made. Which one shall I use on this sculpture? This one right here. I think I'll use this one. I add fresh clay to the fox's tail, which is where I will begin stamping the design into the clay. Before I start using the silicone stamp, I will carve lines to create the white tip of the tail. Now I'll work on stamping a scattered design onto the tail. And there's the design. How do you like it? I will continue to work in sections to imprint the design all over the body of the fox. Here you can see the design stamped into the clay. It's time to clean and smooth out the rough edges left by carving and stamping into the clay. I will use my mini electric sander, which is actually a modified electric toothbrush. You can check out my video tutorial showing how I made the toothbrush into this handy little sander. I'll put the link in the description for this video. I sand the rough areas with the electric toothbrush, then use a regular toothbrush to remove the clay dust from the crevices. Next, I will use a slightly damp rag to clean off any remaining clay dust particles. Now you can see that the rough areas are smoothed out. Nice and smooth. It's time to make this fox come to life with paint. I already painted the white areas on the fox, and now I'm beginning to use the orange paint. I use a small pointed paintbrush to paint around the edges of the white fur. After I'm painting around the white fur, I will use a larger paintbrush to paint the rest of the body. Let's accentuate the details on the fox as a final step in bringing out his foxy personality. I use an antique gel stain and brush it on the fox and wipe off the excess to bring out all the carved and stamped details. I also use a cotton swab to remove the excess stain from the narrow, harder to reach spots on the fox. I continue to add gel stain and remove the excess until the entire fox is covered. Now the fox sculpture is all done. What do you think? Thank you for joining me for this fox sculpture tutorial. I'll catch you later.